Welcome, listeners, to another chilling episode of Shadows at the Crossroads. Tonight's tale, Home of the Forsaken, invites you to the shadowy outskirts of town, where the infamous Springfield Mental Hospital stands as a monument to unspeakable horrors. This decrepit sanctuary of despair, now abandoned, holds within its walls secrets of a dark past and the echoes of tormented souls. Join us as we venture into the heart of darkness, where the veil between life and death is at its thinnest. Will the students uncover the truths hidden within these haunted walls, or will they become yet another chapter in the tragic history of the hospital? Stay with us if you dare for Home of the Forsaken, here on Shadows at the Crossroads, a Glowing Monkey Systems original. We would appreciate it if you would like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get on with our program. The night air was charged with a sense of adventure and foreboding, as a group of college friends gathered, their eyes set on the infamous Springfield Mental Hospital. The once bustling institution, now a shell of its former self, lay on the fringes of their small town, its brooding presence a constant source of eerie fascination and spine-chilling tales. Among the group was Jake, the unofficial leader, known for his love of the supernatural and daring exploits. With him were his best friend, Alex, a skeptic who relished the chance to debunk ghost stories, Anna, a budding journalist with a penchant for uncovering hidden stories, and Sarah, whose curiosity about the paranormal had always been a driving force in her life. They were joined by a few others, each drawn to the allure of the unknown. Their journey to Springfield Mental Hospital was filled with laughter and playful banter, a way to mask the underlying nerves. As they approached the hospital, the reality of their venture set in. The building loomed ominously against the night sky, its windows like dark, unblinking eyes and its walls holding secrets of a troubled past. Equipped with flashlights that pierced through the darkness and a cooler of beer to lighten the mood, they crossed the threshold of the hospital. The once sterile halls, now ravaged by time, echoed with their footsteps. Graffiti covered the walls, and debris littered the floor, remnants of those who had dared to explore before them. As they ventured deeper into the hospital, they were greeted by the remnants of its past. Faded signs still directed the way to different wards, and rusted medical equipment lay scattered. The air was thick with the weight of stories untold, of pain and despair once confined within these walls. Despite the bravado, a sense of unease began to take hold. The hospital was a labyrinth, its corridors winding and complex. The laughter and jokes that had accompanied their arrival slowly gave way to silence, each student lost in their thoughts, contemplating the reality of the legends they had grown up hearing. What started as a night of adventure was transforming into a journey through the remnants of suffering and tragedy. Unbeknownst to them, their presence in the hospital had awakened echoes of the past, setting the stage for a night that would challenge their beliefs and their very perceptions of reality. As the group navigated the decrepit hallways of the hospital, the air seemed to grow colder and the shadows deeper. With each step, they delved further into the troubled history of the hospital. Anna, flashlight in hand, read aloud from an old article she had found about the hospital. Her voice echoed off the peeling walls as she recounted the grim tale of Dr. Eugene Maddox, the once respected administrator whose legacy turned sinister. Maddox, known for his charismatic demeanor and pioneering visions in psychiatric care, had a much darker side. Whispered rumors suggested he used the hospital as a front for grotesque experiments on the human psyche, pushing the boundaries of ethical medicine. Patients' care were often those forgotten by society, and many met mysterious fates within these walls. The article detailed accounts of unexplained disappearances, not just of patients but also of staff, especially those who started to question Maddox's methods. Alex, ever the skeptic, scoffed at the rumors. Urban legends, he muttered, shining his light on an old operating table. But Sarah, who had always believed in the supernatural, wasn't so sure. She felt a chill as she imagined the tormented souls who might still linger in the hospital. The legend of Maddox's demise was as chilling as his life. As the story went, a group of nurses, fueled by grief and rage over the disappearance of one of their own, confronted Maddox. In the dead of night, a struggle ensued, ending with Maddox's death. However, when the authorities arrived, Maddox's body was nowhere to be found. This led to whispers that his spirit, consumed by anger and a thirst for control, was forever trapped in the hospital. The group found themselves standing in what appeared to be Maddox's office. The room was a time capsule of a bygone era, with faded medical diplomas on the walls and a large dust-covered desk. In the dim light, Jake noticed a journal lying open, its pages filled with Maddox's cramped handwriting, detailing experiments and observations that made their skin crawl. As they left the office, an oppressive feeling descended upon them. The playfulness that accompanied their entry into the hospital was gone, replaced by a growing sense of dread. It was as if the very walls of the hospital were saturated with the echoes of its dark past, and now the group was part of its story. In one dilapidated ward, they found a collection of rusted medical instruments, some of which bore ominous stains. They lay scattered on broken tables in the floor, remnants of the cruel treatments that were once administered here. The sight sent a shiver down their spines as they imagined the pain and fear experienced by the patients at the hands of Dr. Maddox. In another room, what appeared to be a common area for patients, the walls were covered in scrawlings. Desperate pleas for help, angry denunciations of the hospital's staff, and even simple expressions of longing for the outside world covered every inch. The words were like ghostly whispers from the past, reaching out for understanding and compassion that never came. Amidst the ruin, they found personal belongings of former patients, a faded photograph of a smiling family, a tattered doll, a worn-out journal with indecipherable entries. These items, once treasured, were now abandoned, serving as poignant reminders of the lives that had been uprooted and confined within these walls. As darkness enveloped the hospital, the atmosphere grew increasingly sinister. The distant echo of footsteps, the creaking of old doors, and the soft rustling of unseen entities filled the air. The group felt as if they were being watched from the shadows, the weight of unseen eyes upon them. Fleeting shadows flickered in the periphery of their vision, always just out of sight, but unmistakably there. The play of their flashlights against the peeling walls seemed to animate these shadows, giving them a life of their own. Every so often, a sudden movement or an unexplained sound would cause them to whirl around, only to find nothing there. The oppressive sense of dread grew with each passing hour. The students began to realize that the hospital was more than just an abandoned building. It was a repository of suffering and anguish, a place where the line between the living and the dead was unsettlingly thin. As they moved cautiously through the darkened halls, they couldn't shake the feeling that the true horrors of Springfield were yet to reveal themselves. As the clock in the town square struck midnight, a palpable shift occurred within the walls of the hospital. The group, already on edge from their unsettling discoveries, froze as a chill permeated the air. An outline of a figure in the darkness was seen by all. A man's voice was heard in the room like a cold whisper. "You dare to trespass in my domain," he hissed, his words laced with a venomous anger. "You shall know the suffering of those who defied me." The atmosphere turned oppressive, as if the hospital itself responded to the shadow's malevolent will. Doors along the corridor slammed shut with thunderous force, trapping the group inside. The air was filled with the sound of disembodied whispers, voices of the past reliving their torment. The temperature dropped, breaths turning to mist, as the ghostly presence of Maddox loomed over them. Without warning, the halls became a theater of horrors. Apparitions appeared, spectral figures of patients and nurses, their faces twisted in anguish. These spirits, bound to Springfield by their tragic fates, echoed Maddox's wrath, their moans and cries creating a cacophony of despair. Anna screamed as a ghostly hand brushed her cheek, its touch icy and filled with sorrow. Jake and Alex, usually the bravest, felt an overwhelming sense of dread as the ghosts swirled around them, their anguished faces a mirror of the suffering inflicted by Maddox. Sarah, tears streaming down her face, whispered apologies to the spirits, her heart aching for their pain. In the chaos, the group realized that they were not merely facing the wrath of Maddox, but also confronting the collective agony of decades of torment. The hospital had become a prison for these lost souls, and now the students were caught in the midst of their eternal nightmare. As the supernatural assault intensified, the group huddled together, realizing they needed to find a way out before they too became permanent residents of Springfield. The ghost of Maddox, reveling in their fear, seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment, his spectral form becoming more defined, more terrifying. In that midnight hour, the line between life and death blurred. The students faced a terror beyond their wildest imaginations, a terror born from the darkest depths of Springfield's history. The realization that they were trapped in the hospital hit the group like a physical blow. Panic set in as they rushed to the main entrance, the way they had come in, only to find the doors immovable, as if welded shut by an invisible force. Frantically, they tried windows, secondary exits, any possible escape route, but it was as if the entire hospital had locked itself down, sealing them inside. The once familiar layout of the hospital began to warp and twist into a disorienting maze. Hallways seemed to stretch endlessly, rooms looped back on themselves, and staircases led nowhere. It was as if the building itself was alive, its structure manipulated by the malevolent will of Dr. Maddox's ghost. Amidst this chaos, the group got separated. Each student found themselves alone, navigating the terrifying and ever-changing landscape of the hospital. The isolation only amplified their fear, leaving them vulnerable to the horrors that Maddox's spirit unleashed upon them. Jake, usually fearless, found himself in what appeared to be an old operating room. The ghostly apparitions of patients, their eyes filled with pain and betrayal, surrounded him, reaching out with ghostly hands. Their moans and cries filled the air, accusing him of being an intruder in their place of suffering. Anna stumbled into a children's ward, where the remnants of broken toys and faded drawings adorned the walls. The eerie sound of a child's laughter echoed around her, and shadowy figures of young patients darted in the periphery of her vision, playing a macabre game of hide-and-seek. Alex, the skeptic, was confronted with his disbelief in the supernatural. In a room lined with mirrors, he saw not only his reflection but also glimpses of Maddox's victims, their faces contorted in silent screams. The experience shook his understanding of reality, the psychological terror of seeing the impossible unfolding before his eyes. Sarah found herself in the hospital's old library, where the ghost of a nurse, her face etched with sorrow and rage, recounted the tales of Maddox's atrocities. The books around her whispered secrets of the past, each volume a testament to the pain that had permeated Springfield. As they each navigated their personal hells, the presence of Maddox's spirit loomed over them. His ghostly figure occasionally appeared, his laughter echoing through the halls, a chilling reminder that he was the puppet master of this nightmarish theater. The students, driven by a desperate will to survive, clung to the hope of finding each other and escaping the clutches of the vengeful spirit that haunted the forsaken corridors of Springfield. As the first light of dawn filtered through the mist that shrouded Springfield Mental Hospital, a few weary, disheveled students staggered out of the main entrance. The night had taken its toll, leaving them physically and mentally exhausted, their eyes wide with the unspeakable terror they had endured. They clung to each other, their faces pale and haunted, as they made their way back to the safety of their world, away from the cursed walls of Springfield. The town was waking up, oblivious to the nightmare that had unfolded on its outskirts. As the students recounted their experiences, their voices trembled with the raw emotion of fear and disbelief. They spoke of ghostly apparitions, shifting hallways, and the malevolent presence of Dr. Maddox, whose wrath they had barely escaped. But their stories, so surreal and fraught with the stuff of nightmares, were met with skepticism and disbelief. In the heart of the town, the story of Springfield Mental Hospital served as a somber lesson, a reminder of the past's lingering horrors. The legacy of Dr. Maddox, the suffering of his victims, and the recent terrifying experiences of the students had become an indelible part of Springfield's history. The home of the Forsaken stood as a silent, ominous testament to the human capacity for evil and the enduring power of the spirits that had been wronged within its walls. In Home of the Forsaken, we journey into the abyss of Springfield Mental Hospital, where the veil between life and death is thin, and the past sins ensnare the living. Join us next time for another journey into the heart of darkness, here on Shadows at the Crossroads.